I know it's early, sweetheart, but we gotta go. We're gonna go on a trip.
Rex, come here, boy.
Where are we going?
Pretend that there is a fire in the house and we have to get out as quick as we could. What would you take with you?
The picture of Mom.
First of all, I remember, if you do remember me from
I do.
Lighthouse, that was we had met. I love this movie, man, and this movie's stuck with me for close to a year now. And I know it's you've been working on it for obviously you're covering it for a while now because you premiered at Sundance last year. So that was the beginning of 2025. But my first question for you has to kind of go off of that initial question you were asked in your Lighthouse interview, which is it has to do with family, which is at the center of your movie. This movie is carried very heavily on it being a character piece between John, Molly, and Wyatt. So obviously, casting is incredibly important in that process. So, how did you shape these characters? And was that dependent on who came along for this journey with you in terms of the actors that embody those characters?
Yeah, great question. Well, I knew based on this script that I had something really special on the page. And so, I'm a director who believes 90% of my job is done when I cast it right. And you're really casting a history of a person. With the kids, it was different, right? But like, especially with dad, I just knew that this dad, um, you know, that not a lot of, let's say, cinephiles know John Magaro is because of his great performances and stuff. But beyond that, I just needed a man who neither could be neither villain or hero. But that was an everyman, but that also you stuck a camera on him and there was just like this chemistry and depth to him. I told John the whole movie, like I couldn't stop shooting his profile. It was just so beautiful and so revealing. And he gave so much. So when we talk about building a character, I guess it started with the idea that John needed to be, this dad needed to be walk the line of a parent who was obviously dealing with some trauma and soul searching and heartache and probably mental health struggles. And then also show that this is a good parent. This is a good man. This is a good man who is in an impossible situation. Um, and John's filmography, when I saw what the work he did in First Cow, I knew John's nuance was just that there was just so much empathy in the soul of that character that he did, Cookie. And I knew that he had that in him to bring an element of that. Now, I wanted him to be a little harder around the edges on this movie and hardened by time and struggle and stuff. But so we went to him. I was fortunate to have had a friend who just made a movie with him. And then, as these connections happen, I knew the cinematographer quite well of Kelly Reichardt's movies, Christopher Blavel. So we had some contacts, and that's how John got the script and immediately responded to it and loved it. And then we got on a Zoom, and the rest was history. So he came, and then I didn't have time with John to do rehearsals or anything. He came with the work he had done, and I was just grateful to be an observer of it and guide it and walk us through and make sure we were all making the same movie. Um, the kids, Wyatt plays himself basically in the movie. He's 6, but what Wyatt did was he allowed himself to really kind of believe it, and he never slipped. He was always calling the characters by their character names. And then, of course, he in this climactic scene at the hospital, he acted, he gave me this like great, beautiful performance and I think like, we that's a moment where all of us can put our director's hat on, me, Molly, John, wherein it was on us to build this believable environment for Wyatt to kind of do what he did there. But we're really grateful that he did. I went into that shoot day very nervous, very nervous that like Molly was going to give the performance that she gave, which she did, that John was going to crush it, and that I would have this little 6-year-old who, in any normal scenario, would be deeply traumatized and disturbed and upset. And that I was like not sure that I couldn't walk over and tell Wyatt, you need to cry, like you're gonna be really sad, buddy. Like, no, it was just like you just have to, he has to be in the moment. And we just, I didn't over direct it. We just came into that scene and allowed the scene to happen. And his natural reaction to everything and these people who he loved at that point, Wyatt really loved Molly and really loved John. And they had spent some time together, and now this was like 11 days into our shoot too, so that might as well be 3 months for a little kid like Wyatt.
Yeah.
um he broke in the most beautiful, honest way, and I'm so proud of him, and he gave us that performance throughout. But Molly's gonna be a star, man. Like, if she wants it, and she chooses wisely these next projects, which I'm sure she will. She has the goods, and I was so grateful to find her for this. She's coming to New York for the premiere, or we're calling it, yeah, the premiere. It's not really or the opening, I should say.
Mhm.
And I'm excited to see her again. She's grown up a lot since then. That both of them have.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the chemistry is obvious in the entire movie, and again, it really doesn't. Not that it wouldn't work without that, but that's obviously the central part of the movie. But one of the other things I was thinking the whole time when I was watching it was how this whole film, even though it's intimate and it is a stripped down movie, it's a road trip, so it's expansive. It's a bigger kind of thing. You're always on the move, on the move. So, did you find it more difficult at times to find the intimacy because you're constantly on the move? How did you grapple with that when you were kind of directing this kind of story?
Yeah, that's interesting. I kind of looked at it with two eyes, and one was that like that I wanted the family to always feel quite intimate, and so there was like a big, yeah, I mean physically intimate, So there was like the biggest thing I cast, the first thing I cast was that car, and feeling, is it, what kind of car is it? Is it part utilitarian, part family? How beat up is it? Are the windows tinted? Can I see the world outside it? How big is the back seat? So all those things, even the placement, should Molly sit in the front seat or should she be in the back seat with Wyatt the whole time? And then allowing kind of like the camera to, we shot all process trailer. None of it is green screen, of course. I wouldn't have done it, but we didn't have the budget either. But so really being only allowed to shoot from certain angles, and then keeping it like a lot of three shots, or keeping the whole family in the one frame, that was purposeful. And then contrasting that with the expansiveness of the American West in a road trip movie, and letting the camera be super wide. And I never wanted to be, there's one drone shot in the movie, but it was purposeful in that, like, I really was reluctant against drone. I wanted us to be tethered to the earth. I wanted us to be out in a field. I wanted us to be like we're watching this from our own 2 feet planted on the ground. And I think we accomplished that. Like, there's such great cinematic kind of language that speaks to the road trip movie. I wanted it to feel like I studied mostly photographers, or I referenced mostly photographers for this film. And there's a lot of photographers who've made road trip books, travel photo books. That was like kind of like our DNA of the movie. But yeah, keeping them together, and then in smaller spaces and multiple people in frame, it was all purposeful. And then letting the wide angle stuff kind of really jump when we cut to that from the road stuff.
Yeah, well, I have a cinematography question actually, so I figure why not
Please.
jump to it at this point? So, with like obvious, it's an emotional movie, right? It comes from an emotional place, but I still do believe because you're filming, and I believe you film this in your home state of Utah, correct?
Yeah, we shot Utah, Wyoming, and Nevada. Yeah, or
Okay,
Utah,
so
Wyoming, and Nebraska.
beautiful, picturesque places, obviously, so it does feel bigger in scale. I think that's a testament on your process to how you wanted to shoot it. So, can you talk about the work that Paul Myers did that added this kind of ethereal element? Because also the mixture of that and Christopher Bear's composition make this movie feel really whole in a really beautiful way. And so, I'd love if you can talk a little bit about how you guys were able to mix all of that together to the end product of what Omaha became.
Yeah, man, I felt like this is a very tough movie, and I didn't want the experience of watching the movie to be solely that one bang banging of the drum the whole time. You know, someone said, "Oh, it's like you punched me in the face with a very soft pillow," and I was like, thank you. That's what I was really trying to do. I wanted this movie to have a lot of music. I wanted us to feel safe at times, you know. That's kind of like talking about cinematography and performance and music. But look, the music was Christopher Bear, who proved himself many times over, but also when I watched Past Lives, I was just like, I love this score. And I told Chris when we first started working together, I was like, I just feel like this music all feels like it should be from instruments found in like a seventh grade band room or something. That these are things that kids could pick up and play, and so that really informed kind of the simplicity of the score and the tonality of kind of like those melodies and stuff. And he sent me some stuff early days before I was shooting that we were doing a road trip from Utah to Nebraska to just really kind of see the movie with Paul and I. And I was still interviewing composers and I found, you know, he sent me this piece and I was just like, that's the theme of the movie. Like that's the music that plays over them pushing the car in the first scene, trying to get in that car and start this movie. So I was fortunate to kind of have that early days and have that while I was watching even dailies and stuff. Um, and then with Paul and I, look, there's like there's a way to make a film like ugly but also cinematic, you know, or raw but also cinematic.
Yeah,
And
100%.
And I think we wanted to kind of be in that zip code in that it was so effortlessly that the beauty really came from the humanity rather than cinematography with a capital C. And that's the faces we cast. That's literally a little bit of the makeup. Like, do their faces have sheen? Do they absorb the warmth of that sun through that window? Is the hair flying? You know, how close is he leaning on a window? Is he not? So just like allowing kind of the emotion of what a road trip felt seep into every frame while they were on that road um, was crucial. I mean, even like one of my favorite frames in the movie, which I saw the moment I read the script, was that overhead of just those little feet poking out from under the bed, the covers, and not seeing the dad enter the room, just hearing him enter and hearing him come in and then hearing him swoop down and pick up this boy in his arms, you know. Those were frames that I saw from the get-go, and there was an intimacy, there was a beauty, a natural, an element of natural lighting that was just key to our, you know, key to the process. But Paul came in and he worked his butt off to do prep and help me find this stuff, you know. So we drove around, we took a lot of photos, we shot tests in the car with his daughter. I mean, all these things that we can talk more about on your show, but like
Yeah,
yeah, I loved it, man. It was a great process, one that I will replicate for every movie I do.
yeah. So I have a bunch of questions, but I'll hit you with one that will probably require maybe a little bit of a longer answer and one quick one. So Ainsley, please just bear with me. Um, John Magaro, you talked a little bit about it. To me, he's such a radiant, but also he's so multifaceted. Like I think about two performances that stick out. Past Lives is one of my favorite films of the last, I don't even know, 15 years maybe. And
Yeah.
his subtlety is important to the dynamic of that love triangle. But then he does something like The Big Short, where he's like incredibly manic. And so I think all of that is in this movie kind of it's contained, but it's like he just wants to scream out. You know, like that's a lot of what his character is. So, and I think this is his genuinely his best performance to date. So that's also a credit to you and your direction. What was it like being able to direct him in this movie in general? I know you talked about how much you just loved his face, but the performance element of it, what was that like for you to kind of be there with John in this process?
Yeah, I learned a lot. I mean, I'd worked for many years on these commercials and short films, and I would occasionally get to work with these master actors in short films, but for like 3 days, and here I got to work with this talented actor who I think will go down as one of our great character actors and great actors, period. In our lifetime that just get to watch him work. And, John is just a normal dude who happens to have this great talent of allowing us into his world through the camera, and he doesn't overthink it, and he doesn't over dramatize it, and he stays in, he slips out, he stays in, he slips out, he finds it. And it was like, at first I was a little intimidated with the idea of giving direction to someone who so skilled in their thing. But I'm a confident person in that I know my vision, and I just needed to keep the movie moving in the right direction. And so that was very easy with John. I probably gave him 10 pieces of direction the whole movie. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
more like, um, hey, hold that a beat longer, or give us a little bit more of this. There was a little bit of this and that and whatever, but John, his job was to know that character, and he did. And then my job was to drive the movie and keep the whole vision in focus, and I did. And getting to work with someone like that, who comes and doesn't come with baggage in terms of what they're going to create a working environment for other people, who also was there to help direct those kids in a loving way. It was just invaluable. I was super, super lucky.
Yeah, it was an incredible collaboration. And my last question, like I said, it'll be quick. I'm such a big fan of this film and of you, having seen it and getting to know you and meeting you. And so my final question really is, I'm just so curious, like, do you have something next in line? Like, what's in the pipeline for you of what you want to do next? I know you've been sitting with this movie now, is your baby, for close to 2 years, a year and a half now. So do you have
Yeah.
an idea what you want to do next, or are you still kind of just taking all this in until you get the premiere?
No, we're trying to get the next one going soon. It's a script that came to me, and it's another drama, but it's a much bigger scale story in terms of the characters and the scope and scale of it. I come from rural Washington with farming in my background. My dad was a farmer. I grew up working on some of those farms and stuff. And this was a topic I've always been interested in, and how that way of life is changing for so many people that I grew up with. And so a script came to me that really dealt with some of these things, and even on larger scale. And so we're getting close to maybe getting that going. I'm excited about that. And then I'm writing a thriller that I'm super excited about too. So hopefully we get to do one of those in the next year, and we're off to the races, and we'll be
Nice.
chatting again.
Yeah, I would love that. That was awesome. But thank you for taking the time to talk to me, man. Again, I love your movie so much.
Thanks,
I
dude.
champion part of the New Jersey Film Critics Circle. I've been championing this movie. When we were doing our voting last year, I was like, dude, this guy, he's a director to watch, but also this movie just like was so heartbreaking. But again, like I think whoever had told you that, hitting you in the face with a soft pillow, it's a movie that sticks with you. And even though it is a tough topic, I've just been waiting to watch it again. And I've told everybody I know about this movie, I'm like, you guys have to watch this movie because it's really, really great. So thank you
Thanks,
for
man.
making something like this, and thank you for taking the time to talk today.
Well, if you can get to it, the next Thursday at the IFC in Manhattan, I think the tickets are on sale now, but Celine Song's going to be there to do moderate. The whole cast will be there. It's open to the public. It's our opening night. So come on in that weekend, and John and I will be doing Q&As. So it'll be cool.
Awesome. That was great. Yeah, everybody
All
should
right,
go
buddy.
and check out Omaha. Thanks, man. I
Thanks,
appreciate your
buddy.
time.
This is the culture.